All right, kiddos, here is the video that is going to break down writing prompt number 2, which is about childhood and adolescent motifs portrayed in Romeo and Juliet. So we'll just first start off here by reading the prompt. In many works of literature, the motifs of childhood and adolescence are portrayed as times of innocence and wonder. In many other works, these years are depicted as times of tribulation and terror. Focusing on Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, write to identify and analyze the play's representation of childhood or adolescence and explain how that portrayal shapes a theme of the play that relates to the author's beliefs about this topic. So, these prompts are always interesting to me because there's really like 2 parts. So I'm going to divide here this paragraph into the 2 parts that I always see these prompts have. So they always have kind of like an introduction that introduces to you the literary idea that they're going to like want you to use as a lens when you're doing your analysis. So this one is wanting you to use motifs, so patterns throughout the text, patterns related to childhood and adolescence. And then they are proposing to you that there's one of 2 options as presented like throughout literature, that these times are innocent and wonderful, or these times are so tribulation are like trials. So they're full of trials and terror or fear. Usually when a prompt like this presents you with 2 kind of extreme examples, the best way to tackle the argument is by kind of trying to argue maybe that it's represented as both, because I think actually that's a great answer here for this, for in terms of Romeo and Juliet. So in the first part of this paragraph, they're just setting up this idea that in literature, a lot of people are writing about adolescence as either of these types of times. And then specifically in the text that you are going to write about, we are going to look for the verbs here, the action words telling us what we need to do as we're addressing this prompt. So we need to write to identify. I'm going to highlight that. As I'm sorry, we don't want to do that. We want to highlight in green. Okay, so write to identify, and then we want to analyze. So that's where we're going to give kind of our opinion about the way that childhood or adolescence is portrayed. The last part that we need to do is we need to come up with a theme that relates to childhood or adolescence. Let's do that in blue. So I think you have one of 2 ways that you can go here. I think that if you don't know yet, if you want to depict tribulation and terror or joy and wonder, then it could be smart to kind of sketch out moments in the play that will fall under each category. I already kind of have an approach that I'm going to go for with this, which is, like I alluded to, I'm going to argue that the representation of childhood is that it's in the middle, that it can be both a time of innocence and wonder and a time of tribulation and terror. The way that I'm going to get away with that, basically saying that it's both, is by qualifying my statement. So I'm going to say, because of something, this thing, which I'm going to tell you in this video, adolescence is a time of both wonder and terror. Let's drink water really quick. Okay. So we're going to start off with the theme. And in class, we were working with this idea. You start a sentence with the author believes that adolescence. I'm just going to go with adolescence because we're not talking about childhood here in Romeo and Juliet. We're talking about young adulthood. That adolescence is both a time of wonder and a time of fear. because I'm going to show you, it's not going to make the best thematic statement right when we get it, but we can work with it a little bit. So the author believes that adolescence is both a time of wonder and a time of fear, let's say, due to the influence of adult conflict in the lives of young people. Okay, so let's just stop for a second. So thematically, we can get rid of this. I wonder, I'm just gonna highlight it in like dark gray. So it's still there, but it's like gone pretty much. So adolescence is both a time of wonder and a time of fear due to the influence of adult conflict in the lives of young people. I personally think that switching the clauses around here and saying the influence of adult conflict in the lives of young people make oh, I hate spelling, a time, oh, hey, look at me with my adjectives, a confusing time of both wonder and terror, which it's good advice to use the language of the prompt when you're answering it. So terror is actually a smarter word to use than fear, because in the original prompt, they use the word terror. Oh, little tip. People love, especially like in academic situations, people love to hear the words that they're using being repeated back to them. So there's a little tip for you. Use the words that they're using. So here we have our universal thematic statement, right? And this was kind of round one, this was process, and then this is product right here, final product, which I love. So once I'm going to highlight this in blue because this is going to be our theme, which is our thesis statement, are related together, right? Our thematic statement needs to be our thesis statement. Those two things are related together because our essays are examining the themes in literature. So the next thing that I'm going to do to think about this essay, and this would be a paper that I would have in front of me when I'm doing my online writing. One, because it has the prompt in front of it, so that's super nice to look at, and then also because it has evidence of the thinking that I've already done. So here I've already written my thesis statement, so I'll know that I need to include that when I'm typing. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is the prompt. I'm like pointing and you can't see me. Okay, so the prompt is asking us to write, to identify, and then we're going to analyze. So in order to identify, all we have to do is just like point at it and just like say like, there it is, there it is, there it is, right? Which means just like find moments in the text where this is happening. So identify, don't make that because that's confusing. This is related to this task we're doing up here. So identify moments in play that show adolescence. Okay, so what are those moments? All right, so in Act 1, in Act 1, you have Sam and Abram. I think I'll just go back and check the text. Kind of joking around in a juvenile way. I'm just gonna put like insults, right? Like stupid insults between each other, kind of just talking trash. But then leads to like full blown fighting in the streets of Verona. And then, like, my underlying thought there is that it's the feud, like the presence of. Here, I'm gonna put that in here because that's actually okay. So it's the presence of the tension created by the feud that leads. What's like the word that like it makes it bigger? It like snowballs doesn't not fit in that word. Presence of tension created by the feud that instigates violence from silly insults. So I hope that I'm expressing, I mean, literally, it was the idea of like biting a thumb at each other that got us to this full blown fighting, and then Prince having to make the decree that if it happens again, people are going to be in really big trouble. So I'm trying to show here that these moments of adolescence that are all change from times of wonder to times of tension because of this like adult conflict, which is represented by the tension of the feud, right? That's like how we're going there. So another time where you see adolescence, um, I mean, let's not, I mean, maybe only focus on terrible things, but like Romeo and Benvolio discuss the challenges represented or the challenges brought about by being young and learning about love. This is like a tender moment between them, right? Like it shows there's like wittiness between them, it shows tenderness, it shows that Benvolio like cares about Romeo and wanting him to move forward. And so like in this way, this moment is a great example between two young people of how adolescence can actually be a really important time, like just for um, young people to like learn from each other, right? Like without the outside influence of adults. So Romeo and Benvolio discuss the challenges brought about by being young and learning about love. So this shows that two young people can learn from each other and grow. This is a wondrous part of being a teenager. I don't know how much we're going to get into this, like into my actual writing of my essay, but like you always, for such a long period in your life, your parents are the only perspective that you get, and they're the only people that teach you anything. And then adolescence is a time where usually young people then are exposed to ideas of their peers or outside ideas. And then it's so wondrous to have your eyes like opened up to different things that people think. Um, so I'm trying to show that this is like a positive thing. I mean, you could even say that like Romeo then becomes disappointed in this scene um, because like he hears that there's been feuding, and so like again, there's like this looming presence of the feud behind the experience of adolescence that these young people are getting to have. You know what I think I'm going to do here? I think in parentheses, I'm just going to put this is Act One, Scene One. And then this is also like Act One, Scene One. Um, all right, so let's keep going. What other moments of adolescence are depicted here? Um, you have Lord Capulet and Paris talking about the marriage, but that doesn't really involve the actual youth. You have Then in the next scene after that, Juliet talks about, oh, that's actually a good scene. Okay. So that's act one, scene, I want to say three. Yeah. So act one, scene three. This is the scene where Lady Capulet comes to Juliet and like says, "Hey, your father's arranged this marriage for you. Why don't you take a look at him tonight?" It's the scene that the nurse is involved in. So Juliet is so excited to attend the ball at her family's house. Um, she anticipates this um, night to be fun and new. She's never experienced anything like this before. Juliet's age also would have kind of signaled this might have been like the first ball that she may have been present for, because you really wouldn't have gone to a ball until your parents started to think about marrying you, or yeah, finding someone for you to marry. So that seems to be kind of the moments that we are for Juliet right now, even though her dad says, I might not marry her for 2 more years. It would have made complete sense that, like, starting now at this fall, Juliet would have been able to go and attend for the first time, and then, like, would spend 2 years kind of going to balls and being present, people seeing her in society before her dad kind of committed to the person that would be her marriage. Although we know that's not what happens, because he like commits right away to Paris right after Tybalt's death. Okay, so Juliet's so excited to attend the ball. It's just like a gown to wear, and this is also just like new and exciting. She can't wait to see it. And then let's do this. And her mother comes in to discuss marriage. This puts a I don't know, heaviness to a night that Juliet was looking forward to being light and carefree. Like, I get the sense that she really kind of wants to just experience some things first, right, before she settles into marriage. I mean, her literal response is about marriage. It's an honor that I dream not of. I can never like forget her response. So we have Act One, Scene Three here. Um, So in this situation, her mother coming in to discuss marriage would be like the adult conflict or the adult concern or the adult tension, kind of overarching, the joy and like wonder that the youth is feeling. I mean, it would be completely logical that she may feel a sense of terror as she's like thinking about this idea of getting married, because she's like, oh my God, it's too young. Oh my God, I haven't gone to experience anything. Oh my God, I don't want to do this right now, So terror may be a good like word to describe how she's feeling there. Okay, so oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, I could go scene by scene and pull like all of the moments of adolescence that you see. Basically, anytime you see young people interacting with each other, there right there is one of the puzzle pieces that's building up this motif of what adolescence is like. That's actually a really good analogy, to think of a motif like a puzzle. And each time you see something that has to do with adolescence coming up, like happening in the play, then you like put that piece into the puzzle, and then eventually it's going to create this picture as to how the author is presenting this idea of adolescence through like all these little different scenes that he's having us look at. Okay, so the Act One, Scene Four, I could get into. It's the scene with Romeo, Mercutio, and Benvolio on their way to the ball. So it's definitely a scene about adolescence, because it's only youth present in the scene. And they're talking about love, and Romeo's taking love very seriously, and it's dragging him down. And then Mercutio's trying to tell him that, you shouldn't, love should make you light and you should be able to just like dance and have nimble feet. So again, similar to the Romeo and Benvolio moments, right, where they're kind of like just discussing challenges together and learning from each other. That's like a positive scene between two youth. What ruins it for them is, well, Mercutio goes off into his whole Queen Mob speech, which just like gets a little intense, and then Romeo has a like a premonition, right? He says that his mind misgives some consequence, yet hanging in the stars. So I'm actually not going to use that scene, but if you wanted to, you just heard some thoughts I had on it. How about the last one that I'm going to do? And I'm just going to outline scenes in Act One. And then, like, from there, if you want to use different scenes or you want to look at Act Two, Three, and pull scenes from there, you are probably going to maybe reference three different scenes. And when I say reference, I'm not saying quote because you are going to paraphrase. And paraphrasing sounds when you're writing a lot like what I'm doing right now when I'm explaining a particular scene of Romeo and Juliet through my eyes, the way that I'm seeing it, with like kind of a little pieces of analysis almost thrown in there. That is writing to identify the scene, and then you're like tipping the iceberg into analysis. So the last scene that I'm going to do for you, and then again, you're more than welcome to kind of do this process for any other act scene that you think is important to help build the argument that you're looking to build here if you're going to write about this. So the last one is that Romeo and Juliet meet for the first time in a very tender moment. Shakespeare represents this like represents the wonder of first love with the beautiful sonnet that is created by the exchange between Romeo and Juliet. Um, I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm like, oh, am I leading you astray? Because I am putting a lot of words on this preparation, which I don't know that I would do for you guys, because you may be tempted to like take it and actually write that in your writing, like word for word, and that's not what we're doing here. So you want to really just try to keep this to little short moments. So I'm talking about the moment that they meet. It's very tender, which if you did your analysis of that moment in Act One, Scene 5, there's a lot of things that you could discuss. You could even pull out your close reading analysis of that, and then take a look at like some of the evidence that you found there. You can paraphrase even more specifically within that sonnet if there are certain things that you want to talk about, like they use religious imagery of a pilgrim and a saint, and then that, I mean, one of the words here that's related to this time period is innocence. I mean, what the religious imagery, of course, is inherently related to innocence. So, there is this innocent language used to discuss kind of this intimate moment, this kiss that they're trying to have happen between the two of them. And so, Shakespeare purposely puts a lot of effort into that scene and representing that experience between the two of them as like a sonnet, like beautifully interwoven words that are full of metaphor and deeper meaning and structure. So all of that is very tender. And what is it that Shakespeare uses to then like break the tenderness of that moment? The feud um, interrupts the tenderness of this moment. And honestly, two ways. One is Tybalt's reaction, And then 2 is they learn they are enemies. Um, and instantly, when they learn that they're each other's enemy, you can see in the language that they use between each other that there's fear there. Like, oh no, my only love sprung from my only hate. And so, right, like this very tender moment that we've established, Shakespeare was so careful to create through the structure of sonnet and the metaphor of like this innocent saint and this pilgrim. And then, what is it that changes that moment into a time of fear and trial and difficulty and conflict? It is the existing and overarching adult conflict that really is outside of these adolescents that continues to turn these moments, these tender moments that are really an important part of growing up and becoming who they are, into times of fear because they have adults who are not keeping the conflict separate, right? And like keeping the conflict away from them so that they can just focus on the difficult job of growing up, which is difficult already as it is if teens don't have to deal with, adult conflict. Um, so this is Act 1, Scene 5. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to come up here to analyze, and I'm going to change its color to yellow. Okay, so, and then I want you guys to understand that in these examples right here, there's 4 different examples that I am, my goal is to identify the moments in the play, right? That first task, that green task. But in discussing these ideas with you and trying to give you like a little bit of fuel for writing, I also did some analysis. So I'm going to highlight that in yellow so you can kind of, I'm sorry, you can see the different thinking ideas here. And again, you guys, what do I care about right now? I mean, this at this point is not about a grade. It's not about like some point game that we're playing with each other. This is literally about me trying to use this as an opportunity to help you get some writing skills under your task, under your belt, because it's so different to do timed writing than it is to do a prepared essay. It's like a whole different beast. So give yourself some grace, just do the best you can. I'm going to read through it and I'm hopefully, we're going to be able to make some progress here. Do this a couple times and then we'll get better at it. Okay, so I mean, this is a little bit of an now. I don't do as like I'll just do heaviness. Heaviness to a night that Julia was looking forward to being light. I'll just do that as like that's kind of analysis there. And then this is analysis when I'm analyzing the moment. I'm like arguing that it's a tender moment, and then I'm arguing that it's through structural devices and like literary devices that tenderness is being created. So let's do the yellow here. I think the feud interrupting the tenderness of this moment is analysis, like because it's an opinion based idea, but then these 2 ideas, the 2 ways that it interrupts it, are your moments from the play that we are just like identifying to show moments of adolescence. So, okay, I never know if these videos are helpful because honestly, by the end of them, like, I don't even know what I've said. But I hope some tidbit of this is helpful for you if you're thinking about attacking this prompt. If you have another idea or you want to run your thematic statement by me, let's do that by email. And like I said, you guys, give yourself grace the first time you're really like doing a timed writing for an academic task. So get yourself prepared, think through these things. This is going to be posted for you, but I don't necessarily know that this is what you're going to want to have because this is my writing and it's not yours. So you may just want to like look at mine and then do this on your own. I promise you, the more prepared you are, the more you're going to be ready when that quiz box pops open and you see your text box. You're going to feel calm, cool, and collected to just kind of explain your thought process. You do not have to feel pressure to like embed quotes because you have no responsibility to put direct evidence into this writing. You just need to refer back to moments in the text. And in terms of feeling like lead ins, or like, how do I cite this information? You in your sentences can do something that I think you guys are comfortable with, because I tried to get you away from it, but here it's okay to apply it, where you're going to say, in Act 1, Scene 1, Sam and Abram are joking around in a juvenile way when he, insults his enemy by biting his thumb at him. This is a silly juvenile. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good example of how you can just like embed where the paraphrase is coming from with like the lead ins to your sentences. You also can just say what happens in the text, paraphrase it, and then at the end, in parentheses, just put a parenthetical citation. So, Act 1, Scene 1, just one period, one period. And then for those of you, because I know there's some of you out there where you're going to do real specific paraphrasing, where you're going to take like a chunk of maybe 20 lines, and then you're going to look at them and you're going to paraphrase them all together. You can paraphrase them and then in a citation at the end, in parentheses, just put Act 1 period, like 1 period, Scene 1 period, or whatever it is, and then put the line numbers that you're paraphrasing there, because you are paraphrasing something specific. Okay, guys, I hope this is helpful.